Okay, let's jump right in. We're going to do a deep dive today.
Sounds good.
We've got some interesting reports here on Bitcoin ETFs, trying to figure out what's really happening.
Right. We're looking at some source material, some excerpts that really highlight the recent market moves.
And the numbers are, well, pretty attention-grabbing. We're talking about a huge $2.75 billion flowing into Bitcoin ETFs.
In just 1 week.
Exactly. And the sources say BlackRock's iBit fund was like a major recipient of that.
Yeah, it led the pack. What's really fascinating, though, is when this happened.
Right. Bitcoin's price was holding strong. The reports mention it stayed above $108,000.
Mm-hmm. Which is significant because,
Well, the material points out this resilience came even as the wider market sentiment was apparently cooling.
so big money moving in, even when the overall vibe might be a bit quieter.
Precisely. So, what's really driving this? That's the question.
That's what we need to unpack.
Right.
Why now? And what could it signal for the future, according to this analysis?
Okay, so that covers the recent picture. Big inflow, strong price. How does the source material connect this to what might happen next?
Well, looking at the analysis flags some projections from Bitwise. They're forecasting something pretty staggering.
Oh, yeah.
$420 billion in Bitcoin inflows
Wow. $420 billion by when?
by 2026. So just in the next couple of years.
That's a massive forecast.
Uh,
What do the sources say is powering that kind of expectation?
It seems to boil down to two main things, according to the analysis. First, a big pickup in institutional adoption.
Okay, the big players getting more involved. Makes sense.
Right. And second, what the material describes as increasingly favorable U.S. policies towards crypto.
Ah, the policy angle. That's always crucial. Does it get specific?
It actually does. It talks about potentially more crypto-friendly administrations, maybe some clearer regulations.
And wasn't there something else mentioned? Something quite significant?
Yes, they even floated the idea of a U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve.
A strategic Bitcoin reserve, like the government holding Bitcoin as a strategic asset.
Exactly. That kind of specific policy idea is cited as, a potential contributor to that really optimistic inflow forecast.
Wow. That certainly paints a picture of deeper integration. The source also touched on why institutions might be jumping in now, right? Especially via these ETFs.
Mm-hmm. It links back to that growing mainstream view of Bitcoin, seeing it as a potential hedge.
A hedge against what? Economic uncertainty.
Yeah, economic uncertainty, maybe inflation. That perspective is highlighted as a key driver in the material we looked at.
Okay, interesting. So let's quickly recap for everyone listening.
Good idea.
We've seen these huge recent inflows into Bitcoin ETFs, billions in a week, spearheaded by players like BlackRock.
All while Bitcoin's price stayed remarkably strong, over 108K, even with that cooling sentiment backdrop.
Then looking forward, the sources point to these massive projections, potentially hundreds of billions more flowing in by 2026.
Driven largely by institutions getting more comfortable and, potentially, some significant shifts in U.S. policy.
Including ideas as big as a national Bitcoin reserve.
And underlying some of that institutional interest, as the analysis suggests, is this perception of Bitcoin as, well, a hedge.
A hedge against economic volatility. Got it.
Yep.
So that leaves us, and you listening, with a pretty big thought to chew on, doesn't it?
Definitely.
If these projections of, say, $420 billion in future inflows actually happen, driven by big institutions and maybe even governments adopting strategies like a strategic Bitcoin reserve, what does that level of integration truly mean?
Yeah, what does it mean for Bitcoin's role, not just in finance, but maybe in the whole global economic picture going forward?
It really puts the potential scale of change into perspective, doesn't it? Something to keep an eye on.